Hi, welcome to Hockmeyer Equipment. My name is Dustin Thomas, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate to you on how to put together the16th MicroMill. In this video we're going to demonstrate several different operations that we can do with this mill. For starters, we're going to put together the high-speed single shaft disperser, and we're going to follow that by putting together the actual mill head with the mill shaft and the grind chamber. Following that, we're going to go right with the tank, and I'm going to show you how to put together the sweep arm. Well, let's start with the single shaft disperser. This thing is so simple. There's only 4 bolts to go together, and you put it together maybe in 2 minutes. All you have to do is line up the spider gear in top. Make sure you have it lined up with the bearing housing gear here. So I'm going to line that up just like that. Put my bolts in. Now when you tighten these bolts down, you want to make sure you tighten them opposite of each other so you keep it aligned. After you have them all tightened, just go around and snug them up. And that's it. The high-speed single shaft is together. Now, to operate, first thing I'm going to do is turn the mill on. You never want to put components on the mill with it turned on. So that's why I like to keep it off. I'll grab my tank to put under here to activate the limit switch. Without that limit switch activated, the mill will not run. I'll put my tank under there. Lock it in, make sure the limit switch is engaged. I'll unlock it, the mill, Now, press the turning knob to begin. Hit the start button. And there you go. This disperser / mill, it's capable of operating it up to 9,000 RPMs. You see I'm only at 1,000 right now. But since I don't have an actual batch under there, I'm not going to run it at that speed. Make sure we turn the mill back off. Now, disassembling this is just as easy as it was putting them together. Loosen your bolts. Let me go that way. Now you want to leave 1 bolt in this, just because it's going to take a little bit of force to get this off. And you'd rather have a bolt there to catch it just in case it falls. You don't want to hit the table. And that is it. Now we're back to square one. And now I'll proceed with putting the actual mill together. Same thing with the mill shaft, the base of the mill shaft. It has the spider gears in that as well. We'll line those up. Like that. You want to tighten these up the same way, opposite of each other. Now, let me gather all my parts. First step in assembling the actual mill shaft and grind chamber will be to install the rack dome. The rack dome is threaded. You just screw it into the base of the shaft. Now, on this rack dome, there's a set screw in the back. So when this mill is actually operating, you want to make sure that set screw is set on the rack dome so the rack dome doesn't spin off. So we'll tighten that now. The next step is to install the shaft. As you can see on the shaft, it has 3 flat sides on it. That's where you want your set screws to land, so it has somewhere to grip to instead of the round part of the shaft. Because that too will spin right off. Right now I'm not worried about the depth that I set the shaft at, which I will explain later why I pushed it all the way up for the time being. Next step is to take your peg hub. This also screws on the top and has threads on the bottom for the bottom prop. Excuse me, before I get to that. Auger. This is what helps feed the media field with product. This goes on before the prop. I'll just hold that all the way at the top until I load my media, and we'll drop it down into the media field. Next comes the peg hub. After I put on the peg hub, I want to install the screen. First I need to put the roll-on bushing in it. This is where the actual shaft and peg hub go through the screen, and this keeps a tight tolerance so media cannot go through the bottom of that screen. Put it on, put it up. It locks in, you spin it clockwise to lock it in. Next you put on the peg, or put on the prop. I will drop the shaft down. The only reason I kept it up is to make sure I could get that screen to lock on. And then you drop the shaft down to sit on that roulon bushing. If you don't drop that shaft down to sit on that bushing, media will get in between the bushing and the peg hub and just wear that roulon bushing out, and eventually eating right through it, and you'll lose all your media through the bottom of the screen. And that is it. The mill is completely put together. The last thing we have to do is add the media before we can start milling. I have my media weighed out already. 50 milliliters is what goes into this mill. Get some of that water off the top. I'm going to put the tank under there just to catch the water as it goes through the bead field. Drop it down a little bit. Now once your media starts building up to the top of the shaft here, you want to turn it on. Lock your basket in place and engage the limit switch. Now you're not ready to run yet. All you want to do is jog the machine to get that media to go down into the media field, and then you finish filling. So I'll drop it down, press the turning knob to acknowledge that I'm ready to start. Hit the start button, and that's it. It falls down into the media field that simply. And there you have it. Now we are finished loading the media. Last step is to drop the auger. Now when you drop the auger, you want to drop it down to on top of the peg hub, or either 2 flights in, 2 flights out, half and half, whatever you prefer to do. Alright, now since we're at this stage, the normal milling process would be ready to start. But since we don't have an actual batch under there, I will demonstrate briefly how we would go about doing this. We'd unlock the mill, we'd start bringing it down into the actual vessel. Start milling slowly. Try to get those air bubbles out if there are any in there. You don't want to crank it up right from the start and have a huge bubble come out of the top. So you work slowly, drop it down in there, and then once all the air bubbles came out, you start to increase your speed. We typically run this mill at 5,000 RPMs, which based off the tip speed up from the edge of the peg hub is 21 to 2,200 feet per minute. Now I will show you how to install the sweep. Here's a standard MicroMill sweep. Has scrapers on the side, scrapers on the bottom, triangle scrapers. It has the air forwards and air backwards. So we have leading scrapers and trailing scrapers, which is why we made them triangles. So you can either scrape that way or that way. Now I'll put the actual sweep arm together. The one with the cut at the top goes at the top of the scraper bar, excuse me. The one half and half goes at the bottom of the side scraper. The scraper without any cuts in it goes on the bottom. Now when you put this on, you want to make sure that you angle your pin where the actual cotter pin goes. You want it to come back to the middle of the tank. Inside the vessel, you don't want it to scrape the wall. So make sure you have it coming back through this side, and that's where the cotter pin goes. Which I'll put on right now. The side scrapers, they don't have a cotter pin because the bar that holds them in doesn't go all the way to the bottom. If it did, it would scrape the bottom of the tank. Now I'll put it in the tank, the actual vessel we are going to use. You want to make sure all your pins are out. Pull them out, twist them. That sound was it actually locking back in. So now you lock them in. Spin it until it locks in, as you just heard it lock. Alright, next step is to hook up the air assist. This is what allows you to be able to use the sweep either direction. Plug these in. Make sure they're plugged in all the way. There we go. Now it's all the way in. You have variable speed up here depending on the viscosity that you are running. So if you have a very high viscosity, you may need to turn it up a little bit more so you have a little more power to actually push that batch into the mill head. So you can feed it to the auger, and then the auger will feed it through the mill. Next, I'm going to simulate a batch by filling this up with water. Should be good to go. Got everything locked in place. Get everything hooked up properly this time. The limit switch is engaged. Now we're ready to mill. As I did earlier, calm down slow. Get those bubbles out. Now, before I go any farther, in a regular vessel, like this one here, you won't be able to see the bottom, but if you have a scrape arm in it, it will sit just like this one does. So you need to be wary of where the bottom of your screen and prop fall, because this basket can go down, this mill can go down far enough to hit that bottom scraper. So you want to be mindful of where you're positioned in the actual vessel. Right there looks like a good spot. You can see the flow through already without the sweep arm on. I'll turn the sweep on. Turn it up. And what that sweep arm would do in a batch that was high viscosity, those arms would scrape it off the walls, which helps flow back into the batch, but also it helps cool the batch. Because when you have all that pigment or coatings or ink against the wall, it insulates that wall. And then what that scraper does is it gets all that off the wall, so that cool air, or excuse me, cool water flowing through that tank can get to the batch itself. Now when we stop the mill, slow it down gradually. Lift it up. Now in an actual batch that has a color, to clean this tank, to clean this mill head, bring it down a little bit, right there. To clean this mill head, you want to run it outside of the tank, so all that product can get pushed through the screens, through the side screen and the bottom screen. Once you feel that it's clean enough, just stop it, pull it up, move your batch, fill it off, do what you need to do with it. For cleaning this, very simple. If you have a good solvent, take your solvent, dump it in a pot, dump it in a cup. If you have a big enough cup to fit in, drop the batch back down in it. We'll say this is a solvent now. Drop your batch back down in it. Run it for a few minutes. Depending on the product you're running, depending on the viscosity, the stickiness of it, is how much cleaning you need. If it's something that's not very viscous, it should clean right off if you have a good solvent to go with it. Now if it's something that has a little bit more stickiness to it, you may have to come through and do some scrubbing with a little brush and then drop it back down, and that should be it. If you're going from batch to batch, there's minimal cleaning involved. Now, with all that, we'll unhook the scraper. Comes right out. Take this to the side. Now for the breakdown of this machine, very simple as well. Just like you put it together, but you work in reverse order. First, start by taking the prop off. Next, the screen, turn it counterclockwise to take it off. You want to hold your finger where the shaft was, where the actual peg hub is, because once you drop it down, media is going to come out the bottom of that. So you want to hold your finger over the top of it. Make sure you have the mill shut off before you do any of that. Hold your finger over it. My finger's covering the bottom of that where the roll-on bushing is and the shaft comes through. Flip it in the cup. Use your water to clean it out. Spray down all your other parts. The peg hub, the draft tube. Head hub off. Next comes the auger. There's the auger. Next we'll remove the rack dome, make sure to loosen the set screw in the back. This loosens clockwise. Once you get to this point, it really doesn't matter, you can pull the shaft down first and then the rack dome. It's just the order I did it in. Now we'll pull the shaft down. And there you go, the mill is back to its basic position here, where we started. The only other thing I could do is pull this back down, and then it would be completely stopped, completely stripped down to bare bones. That's as far as you can get it. But there you have it, that's how you assemble and disassemble both the high-speed single shaft disperser, the mill head, and the sweep arm.